Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. As a wave of extreme cold engulfs Ukraine once again, the brief moment of respite granted by the apparent request of President Donald Trump to cease attacks on the country's power network has not prevented another major issue. This time, a cascading power failure has hit both Ukraine and neighboring Moldova, apparently due to a technical malfunction. Nevertheless, the future of the fragile cessation of hostilities against Ukraine's power network remains uncertain. While the talks involving Ukraine, Russia and the US, which were scheduled to take place on the 1st of February, have, according to President Volodymyr Zelensky, apparently been delayed. What is next for the ongoing efforts to end Russia's aggression against Kiev? Joining us now to discuss this is Maria Tomak, researcher at the Truth Hounds and an expert in the field of human rights. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, can you tell us about the situation in Ukraine right now? And in particular, have you been affected by these blackouts and these energy network failures during recent days?
Yes, of course, I'm in Kyiv now, and as well as a majority of my compatriots, people who reside in Kyiv, I was affected. Although now I have an electricity, it was switched on just half an hour ago, but it's a rare pleasure that we have these days to have an electricity. And also, very many people remain without the heating. That is probably the biggest challenge for now. Myself, I'm lucky because we have a community in my apartment residence, and we collected the funds back in 2022, and we purchased a generator that allows us at least to have a relatively warm air here in my apartment, but that's not something, unfortunately, that is a widespread situation. And here I would also like to take this opportunity and to thank to the Polish people and the government, because in the recent days I have seen many news on the assistance provided by the volunteer groups, but also by Warsaw and by the Polish government. We appreciate that a lot. As for the blackout situation that occurred yesterday, I have seen many messages, from my friends in the social media that people have almost not felt that so significantly. I mean, those who were not in the underground, for instance, or taking some transportation with electric transportation. It's just that the water disappeared, but that's something really common, in the recent days. Or electricity disappeared. That's not something that's unusual for Ukrainians now. Of course, that was a huge story and awful situation, but I think it's safe to say that people in general, on the backdrop of this whole awful situation caused by the Russian shellings, they have almost not felt that situation. But I would like also to emphasize that recently, people were praising so much, and I think it's important to underline the work that people who are taking care of our electricity system are doing. All those specialists who are trying to repair all those casualties or all those technical problems that are caused by the shellings. They are real heroes on these days now in Ukraine, and people praise them a lot because everything that they do.
That's a very important point. Some of them have actually lost their lives because the Russians were attacking energy facilities, waiting for first responders to arrive, and then staging another attack in the very same location. But moving on now to the question of what's going to happen within the next few days. Do you think that this energy ceasefire is likely to hold? President Trump said it's going to last for a week, but the Russians were saying, no, it's just until the 1st of February and no more. Do you think the attacks will resume?
It's really hard to predict anything, and I would like to abstain from any predictions. We're just taking what we are going to have, and that's been the mood of Ukrainians. Russians probably were thinking that Ukrainians would start to attack the government, to blame the local authorities. Of course, there's truth to that. There are some tensions, and people are tired, people are nervous, so sometimes there are some like attempts to say that local government is not doing well. But in general, people are understanding where it comes from, that it's the result of the Russian aggression. And people do not seem to, change their moods. People don't call the government to give up, to surrender or something like that. So I don't see that there's any changes there. And also going back to the thing that you mentioned about these workers of the energy infrastructure and rescuers are targeted. So I think it's important to underline, because my colleagues also prepared a report on the so-called double tops. Meaning that when Russians are shelling some object and then rescuers come and then they shell it again. So that's, unfortunately, it's not something that appears like randomly. It's a practice. It's a deliberate practice that we used in Syria, for instance. And now we can see it's used in Ukraine a lot in order to terrorize the civilian population in particular.
So with a track record like this, with a track record of war crimes, of atrocities, but also of attempts to assassinate major figures from Ukraine's political landscape, do you think that the Russians could ever be trusted when inviting President Volodymyr Zelensky to Moscow for talks? I mean, many people said, well, this seems like they are basically staging the ground for an assassination.
Well, indeed, it's hard to estimate for me, as I'm not dealing with these issues professional, like security. But I think that, we are 4 years into the full-scale invasion now, and President Zelensky said several times about the assassination attempts that were already conducted by Russians. I don't think that the president's security is so naive, just to send him to the place where it's not safe to be. So I hope that if it comes to the moment where such a bilateral negotiations take place, wherever they're taking place, it will be everything will be set up so that Ukrainian president is safe, and as well as other negotiator. Although, let me remind you that several years ago, Rustem Umerov, who was in the negotiation group, and he's now in the negotiation group, former Minister of Defense, claimed that he was poisoned during one of the negotiation rounds. So, you can never be safe dealing with Russians. It's like, I think that's the history lessons that we have, like Ukrainians as well as Polish people. I think that they would agree with this.
Yes, the Russians do have a penchant for eliminating their political opponents this way, and this goes back to the Soviet era, the Stalinist era, even further than that. But coming back to what's happening right now, do you believe that the current round of peace talks will produce results? We still have the Russians saying we need to have all of the Donbass. That would compromise Ukrainian security, because it would essentially mean handing over a fortified part of the region to the Russians. What do you think is going to happen next? Will Ukraine be pressured into giving up this part of the Donbass too?
I think that nevertheless, whatever pressure our negotiators and the president faces, there is the position of the society. And just the recent polls as of the beginning of January, so just on these days, it shows that 74% Ukrainians find the Russian suggested peace deal unacceptable. So people are not ready to give up the territories, although majority of Ukrainians do support some sort of freezing the current line battlefield, but with the strong support in terms of the security guarantees and the further EU accession of Ukraine. So, I can see that people are really strong there. And I think that is something that, dictates the position of Ukrainian negotiators, and they cannot compromise as something that goes against the what Ukrainians are supporting. It's really, hard to predict again what's going to happen with those negotiations. I don't feel like, in my kind of surroundings, like people who surround me in my circles, I don't see that people are hoping, puts very much hopes to these negotiations, because again, since 2014, when the war started, there were so many occasions when Russia violated the ceasefires and all sorts of deals. So there's not much hope that it will be resulting in anything, even if we don't have strong security guarantees, which now is again very problematic because of everything that's going on in the transatlantic community, I would say. I think I don't need to explain this. So I think that there's growing a tendency of Ukrainians have hope only on ourselves, on the Ukrainian armed forces, and on our European friends, definitely, who do support us and continue to support us.
And let's mention briefly, because we often talk about territory and people think it's like about real estate. It is not. It is about people living there. The territories occupied by Russia have been marked by a wave of war crimes, crimes against civilians living there. Can you tell us more about what has been going on there throughout the war and what is likely to happen to any territory that is handed over to Russia?
Indeed, thank you so much for emphasizing this. It's not about piece of land. It's about people in the first place. And this is something that was underlined not only by the Ukrainian civil society, but by the government as well. And of course, we have that was the illustration, very sad one, but very important one. Those liberated territories back in 2022, 2023, what we have seen, this mass burials in Kyiv region, in Kharkiv region. So that is pretty much what's going on in the occupied territories. And unfortunately, we don't have instruments in most of the cases, to help those people other than just to try to track what's going on there. And of course, it's all started with the Crimean Peninsula and with the repressions against people who disagree with the occupation of Ukrainian territory, in particular Crimean Tatars. And speaking of Crimea, because for many years I've been dealing with Crimea specifically, for now, there are 224 political prisoners there. 133 of them are Crimean Tatars. I'm talking only about Crimea, but in general, we're talking thousands of civilians who are held as either as prisoners, either as political prisoners or just hostages in some, random places without any legal, quasi-legal procedures, even according to the occupied territories kind of administration, etc. So and again, it's getting more and more hard to get any information out of it. And recently, I just wanted also to underline this, since we're talking about the negotiation process and this energy issue, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant and Enerhodar city, just this place only. It survived hundreds of people being illegally detained, including those people who are responsible for nuclear security, who are running the power plant. Those people faced the very huge pressure from Rosatom, precisely, those white-collar people who kind of part of the all this corporate world in particular, but they were acting as as those people who were holding prisoners, who were torturing people. And till now, we have at least 35 people detained, workers of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, as well as their family members and residents of Enerhodar, including women. So that just
very dangerous, very serious situation there. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Nevertheless, thank you very much for joining us here today. Maria Tomak was a guest here on TVP World. We very much appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news and updates.